Hi guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be reading a creepypasta story called Goat Man. Now I have already read this, it's really creepy. I thought I'd make a great video. Just a disclaimer, if you are a younger viewer, if you are sensitive, or if you just don't like creepy shit, this ain't for you. But if you do like creepy shit, stay tuned. Okay, so the basis of this story is this kid and a group of friends go out into a trailer that his uncle owns, and it's in a wooded area. Now, the people that are like the group of people, some know each other, some don't, so they're not familiar with the group of people, and there's about 10 or 11 of them. It will explain it more in the story, but I thought I would just state the background before I start it off. Okay, so it's important to know that there were 10. There were supposed to be 10. Okay, keep that in mind. Let's start. So we end up playing football, dicking around with me. There's the white kid, Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends. In total, there were 5 girls and 6 boys. We're all around 15 to 17. Okay, so there's 11. Keep that in mind. We ended up just dicking the whole day away. Probably read if I put my glasses on. So we head back to the camp and pulling out some stuff for the campfire, even though the trailers both had kitchens. Tanner says that his family's property sits up against my uncle's. He wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come out camping with us. My cousin Rooster says he's going to go with him since it's going to get dark out soon. One of the girls also wants to tag along. It's about 7 o'clock and it's starting to get pretty dark. They take flashlights and take the trail towards Tan's property. The rest of us chill, we make s'mores, drinks, and kiss on the girls. About 30 or 40 minutes later, there's the smell of ozone again. You could smell it over the smell of the fire we had started. This really nasty coppery smell, like right after you've just had a nosebleed and it stopped. It wasn't exactly like dried blood, but it was that nasty metallic back of your throat smell. We immediately think that there's some kind of electrical malfunction or someone left a hot plate or some shit. We search the trailers and nothing is on, and we can all smell it. All of a sudden, you can hear people bucking down the path towards us, and Rooster, Tan, and the girl all come running into the clearing, out of breath. And they don't even break stride. They all run into the trailer right by where the fire is. We all get the fuck out of there and into the trailers. They end up calming down. Even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is going lower and lower. So my other cousins say fuck it and are about to go outside and get the generator out of the shed between the trailers. Tanner goes, fuck no, lock the door, ain't nobody else going outside. He's been crying too, and his eyes are bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are dirty as shit. Now, if it doesn't make sense to start off with, it doesn't, but the more we go on, the more you understand. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house. His father said sure, he could go out camping, but to make sure they were careful on the way back, and that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before. One of their pigs had come up, ripped up, and half eaten. They assumed it was just some big cats or coyotes, even though they don't usually fuck with live animals. He had gone upstairs and packed his stuff and told his dad they would be okay without the rifle because coyotes avoid people, so they started walking back towards where we were camping. So Rooster finally stops crying and shaking. The girl already had, but she was just staring out the window with a dumb look on her face. He says they had gotten halfway into the woods towards the camp when they started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure at first what the fuck it was. The girl says that she heard something in the bushes right off the trail, and they had beamed their flashlights over there, and there was someone standing back in the woods in a little hollow. Rooster said that they shouted at him and told him that it was scaring the fuck out of them and what a dick he was. He says that when he realised the guy was facing away from them, so they keep walking and they start to smell that nasty coppery ozone smell. They say that they look off into the forest on the opposite side and it's a dude standing in the forest, backwards, slightly closer to the path. So now they start power walking and Tan keeps going, I should have taken the fucking rifle. As they're telling the story, the smell is still super strong and inside the cabin. They say that after they started walking faster, kind of low gibbering had started coming from both sides of the wood, and they started booking it back to the trailer. The girl says she had flashed her flashlight out into the woods to the side of them and had seen something jerking itself through the woods. Also, if I jump in the middle of reading this, my ring light is causing mirror images on my glasses and my cat's rustling in the background, and I know how creepy this story is and I'm home alone at the moment, so yeah, if I start jumping, it's 'cause my pussy. Okay. Gibbering just got louder and louder, and when they could see the light from our campfire, something had come out of the woods about 40 yards behind them onto the track, and they just flat out ran as hard as they could to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods, and we're assuming at this point it's some rednecks or some shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my cousin Junior starts going on about how he went to school with the native kid that was telling him about the goat man or some shit. Promptly tell him to shut the fuck up because we don't need any spooky talk right now. But he just keeps going on and on about how it's the fucking goat man and how we're in his woods and blah blah blah. Now at the time I had never heard of this goat man or any of that. Then a couple of years ago, the year before I graduated from college, I had a menom of a roommate and I ended up asking him about it. And to sum it up, it's basically a fucking man with the head of a goat, and he can shapeshift and he gets among groups of people to terrorise them. It's also supposed to be kind of the Wendigo, and it's bad mojo to even talk about it, and even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know this back when I was 16. So my cousin is going, the goat man's in, he's gonna fucking get us. The girls are all terrified and my cousin and I are still fucking trying to figure out if it's just some hillbillies or some shit, or if it's some animal. All of a sudden the smell just goes away. Like to this day I haven't even experienced anything like it. Like usually smells fade away or lessen. It just literally was there 1 second and then the other second it was gone. So it's after an hour, making it around 9 or 10. We stop shitting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it was just some asshole trying to fuck with us. So we don't go back home because we think if we do, they'll chase us through the woods or some crazy shit. Nothing else weird happened that night and we stay another night. At about 1 in the morning, we're outside getting drunk and telling ghost stories. And someone is finishing some too spooky story. I don't remember what about. The smell comes back. It's so fucking strong that one of the girls literally starts vomiting. I stand up and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I say we should get inside and that this isn't right. We should have just fucking left. We all go back inside, standing around. My cousin just keeps going on about how it's the goat man. My cousin Rooster tries to shut him the fuck up. And all the while, I'm just feeling that something is wrong and I can't figure out what the fuck it is. We end up sitting in there for a while. The smell is just as strong and we're all terrified and all huddled in this camper. We end up cooking brats for everyone because nobody wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 brats. We have a total of 3 packs. I grill them up on the stove and give everybody a hot dog. I get mine after a while. One of my cousin gets up and goes over to the pot to get another one. He starts grumbling about how I get 2 brats and everybody else got 1. And I look at him and he's fucking stupid. I tell him that everybody only got 1 because there were 12. And if he wants more, he'll have to open a new pack and cook some more. That's when the girl that had been out with Rooster and Tan just started screaming, "Oh Jesus, oh Lord, get it out," crying and shivering, and then it dawns on the cousin standing up what the fuck is wrong. Me and him both glance around the room and I feel my heart fucking sink. I run the fuck out of the cabin and the girl runs out with us. The trailer door is banging against the side of the trailer as everybody bucks out of the cabin. One of my cousin's friends asked us what the fuck was wrong. I start counting us. There's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified there had been 12 people in the cabin, but being that everybody didn't really know each other very well, nobody had really noticed the whole fucking time that there was an extra person. And then I realised earlier that I had kind of noticed something was off. You know how when you're just dicking about having a good time that you don't sweat the smallest shit, and you don't always keep track of certain stuff. I'm dead sure that somebody else had been in the trailer with us and that they had been there for at least a fucking day eating with us. What makes it worse is I could figure out which one it was because I don't think anyone actually interacted with the other person / the goat man. The girl kept praying to Jesus and we're all sitting outside. Eventually we get big ass sticks and go back in the cabin. But there's nobody in there. Out again and there's 11 people. We go back into the trailer and lock the door. We explain what the fuck happened and the girl says she realised too, and that when he was about to say something, the person sitting next to her had grabbed her leg hard and leaned over towards her and said something she couldn't understand. So we're pretty much scared as fuck as we huddle together. And I fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up and half the people are asleep and the other half are packing up their shit. We all want to go back home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up, and some people think that we're just fucking around and still want to stay in the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of the woods. The girl's name was Kira, the only one the goat man had touched. Anyway, I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad, and she says she just wants to go home and doesn't want to be out in the woods alone for another night. So we decide to split up. The 4 that want to go can go, but I have to stay because I have the keys to the cabin and it's my uncle's and I have to lock up. I'm super pissed at this point because I feel like people aren't taking this shit seriously, and I definitely didn't want to be out in the woods for another night. I spend the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people, now 4 girls and 4 guys, to get the fuck out of the Dodge. Tanner leaves with them to go and get a rifle and says he's going back. So there are just 7 of us left by 4 PM. Around 5 PM he hasn't made it back yet and we're all getting extremely fucking antsy. And the only reason I stopped begging them to go back was because he went to get a gun. It's about 5:30 p.m. or so when the one cousin that did stay says that girl Kira is outside. We all look outside and sure enough she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, if she was so fucking scared, why the hell would she come back? And then I get this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind the whole time the coppery smell has been gone. Now I realise I can smell it with just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them and everybody, and these are the people that wanted to stay in the fucking woods after we had the goddamn goat man in our mindset. He's laughing at me and asking if I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like, I'm not fucking bullshitting you at all right now. I asked them why the fuck I would play like that. So one of the girls goes outside to get Kira, gets halfway to her and stops cold. Kira starts heaving. I don't know how the fuck to describe it. Sort of like if someone with their back turned was laughing without actually making any sound. It was this fact that made me realise there was not a fucking sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. Yo, look at me. This is Jasmine. She wanted to say hello. You're gonna sit there. She's gonna chill on my lap. So if you see her tail poking out, sorry not sorry, because she's cute. It was this fact that made me realise there was not a fucking sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. This was like later in September, so it was still fairly hot at the time, but it was super chilly some days too, and you could usually hear big ass geese honking or some kind of birds or squirrels chatting. So I stepped out the door and tell her to come back in the fucking trailer right goddamn now. She backs up into the trailer and we lock the fucking door. We pull down all the shades except one and put a guy in the chair to watch her. She stands there for another 20 minutes or so. The guy turns to say that she's still there. There's a huge fucking bang on the door. We all jump the fuck up and scramble around the living room of the trailer. The banging is super fucking loud. So my cousin is holding one of the girls and the other two are kind of giggling with nervous laughter. And me and the other two guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan. He's screaming, "Let me the fuck in! Stop fucking playing!" So we go over to the door and open it, and he stumbles in with a rifle. Somebody else outside. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird happened in the forest, but he had seen a girl. Mind you, he said it was not Kira standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned towards him with a slack-jawed look and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't till he almost was halfway to the trailer he had realised that she was getting closer to him. She had started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been turning, inching closer. He said he just ran the rest of the way back to the cabin thinking it would open, and when he got to the door it was locked. He turned it and it was about halfway in the distance to the door. He looks around the room and gets super pale. He pulls me to the side and whispers in my ear, "You know there's only 7 of us in here, right? I get that feeling where your stomach drops to your nut." It'd been back inside the trailer while we were sorting out who was going where, and then when we all went outside to talk earlier in the day, it just slipped right back in. We looked out the window and there was nobody out there. So we recount everybody, and then basically I'll go over and ask everyone how many people were here earlier, and everybody said 8. I say, well, how many are here now? They all do the count and then realise there are now only 7 people in the cabin. Tan had brought back a couple boxes of ammo and his rifle, and he had told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think his dad would believe him if he said there was a goat man. He says that his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours and that in the morning we can all go back to his place and his cousin will drive us home. Now I'm really fucking terrified, but I at least feel better because we can be American and shoot the fuck out of whatever it is that comes back. But then my cousin gets into a huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks that I'm trying to be funny and prank them. And she says she's getting really scared and that I'm not funny. He keeps telling her I'm not that kind of person. And she says, well, how do you know? Well, how do we know the girl wasn't just Tanner in a wig? Or if it's really the goat man? How do we know that this is the real Tanner and that the goat man just didn't kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun? So we fucking get into a huge argument about this, where me and Tan are like, we could seriously be in danger because at the very least someone has been sneaking themselves into our fucking trailer without us knowing and mingling with us. And at worst, something bad is in the forest fucking with us. One of the girls is crying and saying she wants to go right now, and we're trying to tell her that we shouldn't because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down and it's getting a little cloudy out. We eat something or turn on the radio for a while, but we can't really get a station out here with like anything decent. So we turn it off, and at about the time that Tan's cousin shows up, he was like 19 I think at this point. The sun is just barely over the horizon and he has one of those heavy duty lantern flashlights and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer and we whisper to Tan asking if he's sure that if that's his cousin, and he says yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp, then walks in. He kind of glances at us all and looks a little confused. He says, "Where's your other little buddy at?" I figured she would meet up at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something? He also asked whether we had been cooking blood in the cabin because it smelled like blood and hot pans all the way up to the trail. We are like, fucking nope. But we asked him what the fuck he's talking about with the girl he saw. He had come down the same trail Tan had been using, and when he had come up, one of you guys, his buddies, standing in the middle of the trail, looking at him, slap-jawed. He had asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was just look at him. Then she smiled at him, and he said he kept walking. He couldn't seem to keep up with him and kept lagging a little behind him, and said that he said he asked her if she was hurting or something and if she needed any help, but she had continued to stare. Eventually, he had been walking and turned around a bend in the trail, but when he turned around and went back to see if she was okay, the trail was empty. He'd assumed she had taken a shortcut through the woods to our trailer. We tell him the whole story of what's been going on. I half expected him to say that we were full of shit, but he just listened and then sat down on the couches in the living room. Tanner's cousin gets back to the girl. He says when she had kept trying to lag behind him, he had kind of weirded him the fuck out, so he tried to keep her in front of him, but no matter how slow he walked, she was always lagging a little behind, and that he smelt this nasty smell, and it got stronger as he got to the camp. Eventually it got really strong. She had said something really low and he didn't catch it, and when he had turned around, she had been right the fuck up on him, and he stepped back from her. It was at this point he asked her if she was okay, and if she wasn't, him to carry her back the rest of the way, and she just kept staring. He said he reached out for her, as in to grab her on the shoulder, but he must have misjudged the distance because she was off to the side of where he had put his hand, like she had moved while he was looking dead at her. So at this point, we know this shit's real, unless Tan is playing a joke, which we can tell he's not because he's almost pissing his pants. So they load up their rifles, we eat some more, and we just kind of sit around until about 11. To this fucking day, every time I think about this, I really pray to God that it's some huge prank that my cousins played on me and just never revealed it so I would shit myself for the rest of my life. At around 11, the stink of copper turns into an actual nasty, gross blood-like smell, like cooking blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin Reese get the fuck up instantly and grab the rifle. It's like a half knocking, half clawing at the door, and I shit you not, there's this voice, and it sounds like when you see those YouTube cats and dogs whose owners teach them how to talk, and it says in this halting, weirdly toned voice, "Let me the fuck in, stop fucking playing." It made my fucking nuts creep up against my body, and one of the girls just starts crying and calling on Jesus. It was so fucking obviously not a person talking. It didn't have the right cadence, and that's some shit that I never realised until that moment. But all people have certain cadence when they talk. No matter what language, all people have a certain kind of rhythm of talking. This shit didn't have any kind of cadence or rhythm. One of those YouTube cats, that's what the fuck it sounded like outside the door. Now I'm in full on terror mode. We keep yelling outside. Who is it? Stop fucking around, man. And it just keeps saying in or let me the fuck in for almost 15 minutes. Sorry, we got a little friend. This is Shinx. Say hello. Go on then. It sounded like this almost, just not funny. There was a link to the YouTube video. Just not funny. Sorry for being on a tangent, but if you can't imagine how the shit sounded, then you can't imagine how fucked up the whole situation was. So then the smell goes away for a while, and for the next hour or so you can hear someone basically creeping around the woods and shit. Every couple of minutes it'll come back into the door and say something. Finally, when the smell fades away, it's around 2 in the morning right now, Reese says, "Man, fuck this," and opens the door and walks around with his rifle. That dude has balls. Damn, I'd be crying. He fires a shot into the air and says something in the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more times, and then from the woods right up against the river across from the trailer, it sounded like something slowly gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming, and it sounds almost like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. Like, I seriously have never heard any shit like that, and you can hear the brush over and the way start to shake. Reese fires over into the tree line and then starts backing into the house. We lock the door and we can hear this shit kneeing and screaming. Reese says something had come out of the bushes, super low to the ground and crawling towards the cabin. He had shot at it. Pretty much that was how the rest of the night went. It was literally screaming constantly for the next 2 hours. We could hear shit moving out in the tree line, but it never came back up to the cabin until everyone had finally fallen asleep. Tan had been sitting in the chair watching the door with his rifle. Nobody else heard or saw this, and he told me 2 days later after the whole thing was over. He said he had been nodding off after the screaming and noises finally stopped, and he had been almost asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and then lay down in the middle of the floor and go to sleep. He just assumed it was one of us, and he had nodded off. Then he kind of realised something was wrong, and while pretending to be asleep, he counted us. There were 9 people in the cabin. He basically didn't want to try to shoot at the fucking thing in the cabin and have it kill Saul there and then, or have Reese wake up and start shooting and then we all kill ourselves. So he just stayed awake all night pretending to be asleep. He said sometimes it would stand up and kind of do this weird jittery thing, or heave like it was laughing, but then it would lay back down. The story closes pretty weak, because from my perspective, nothing happened. We woke up and I noticed that Tam was being a little jittery and that he was avoiding looking at all of us. But we ate some breakfast, packed up and started walking to his house. He stayed last in the cabin and said he'd lock up and bring me my uncle's keys, just start walking and he'd catch up, which I didn't really want to fucking do. We got a little bit up the path, and when he came running up, basically we just jogged back to his house. His cousin took us home. There was a window in the bathroom. Tan had gone back to lock up and looked in there. We were too stupid to lock screenless windows. The window was fucking up when he went in there. I'm guessing it had been doing that all along, waiting for us to fall asleep or slip up, and then getting in amongst us. It walked with us all the goddamn way back to his house, and then he said it lagged to the back of the group and looked him dead in the eyes before walking into the woods. Well, there you have it. That is Goat Man. I found it a little creepy, especially the first time I read it. I was like, oh god, what's happening? Well, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you again for watching. If you do like videos like this, like story times, creepypastas, Reddit stories, let's not meet, all of that jazz, then please hit the subscribe button, because I will be uploading as much as I can at the moment while I'm not working because of coronavirus. So again, please subscribe if you like this sort of content, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.